How are things in Atlanta?
Things are cold here.
Oh yeah, all across here
People
too.
think people think Atlanta's always warm. Atlanta's very cold during the winter. So anyway,
Yeah.
where are
I'm,
you based out of right now?
I'm in New York, but I'm from Memphis, so I know what it's like.
Exactly. Well, congratulations on the film. I didn't see it. I was at Sundance, but I did see it at Berlin.
Oh, good.
I really enjoyed it. So congratulations. How
Thank you.
did this project come up?
Well, I was working with Ben on passages in Paris, and I discovered the book. And while I was reading it, I had the idea that it could be a really interesting project for he and I to work on.
Yeah,
I really loved collaborating with him, and it felt like a very special artistic partnership that I wanted to continue. And I knew that we shared an interest in queer history and in specifically queer artists like
yeah.
Peter. And so by the time I finished the book, I thought, let's make a movie of this.
Did you know a whole lot about Peter before you started this?
I knew a good amount. I'd seen his photographs first in the early 90s, probably. He died in 87. I knew more initially about David Wojnarowicz, which was
Yeah.
who was his friend and his partner and his mentee and his a lot of things. But I once I discovered Peter's work, I pretty much sought it out whenever I could find it.
Exactly. How did you go about adapting the book?
Um, Well, the first thing I did was I went back to the Morgan Library where the original transcript of the conversation between Linda and Peter existed in
Yeah.
the archive there. And I found certain passages which had been edited out of the book, and I brought them back into my screenplay. So, for example, the whole discussion of Betty Davis and Joan Crawford that the two have late in the story was not in the book. So
Okay.
I tried to shoot the full and extensive dialogue between the two of them. The challenge was how to make it cinematic.
Yeah.
And really, what I had to do was release any idea that this would be a real, like exactly as they did it on the day. I did something very different, and I broke down the conversation between the two of them into about 25 different scenes. And
Mhm.
within the apartment, there are like 6 or 7 different locations. So I tried to make the material more cinematic than it might initially appear. Um, like, for example, if we were going to make a movie of this conversation, you wouldn't want it to just be you and I sitting at a table talking on Zoom.
That'd be awfully dull.
Yeah.
Exactly. How would you describe the relationship between Linda and Peter?
Um, Beautiful.
Yeah.
Um, a real tender friendship filled with trust. And also, I think Linda was really a witness
Yeah.
to Peter. And I think he trusted her because he could tell that she really cared about him. And I think that was inherent in what I learned about the relationship. But it's also something that I think Rebecca Hall managed to emphasize in her performance in the film,
Yeah.
which is ultimately she's telling a story of a woman loving a good friend in a way that is very deep and quite emotional.
Yeah. It's it's hard to think of two other actors who could have played these roles once you see the film. But can you sort of talk about what Rebecca and Ben bring to these roles?
Well, I think what almost shocked me about Ben's performance is that he could make every word vivid and alive. Like nothing is lost, and it's 55 pages of text that he inhabits in such a full way.
Yeah.
I think it's a unique part for him in the sense that I think it's a kind of grand part, and it gives him a lot of room to shine and to stretch in a way that maybe he hasn't often had in cinema. It's a monumental role,
Yeah.
really, and he does beautiful things with it. I think Rebecca, um, again, it's really the tenderness in her performance that I appreciate so much, and how she almost writes another story without language of the relationship between Peter and Linda. She also knows Linda the way I do. So she brings, we both got to know her very well. And I think we understand that she has a particular quality of curiosity and affection that I think Rebecca brings to life.
Um, Obviously, you've worked with Ben before, but what's so special about working with Ben as an actor?
It's a good question. I think it's the nature of his um, comfort with taking risks.
Yeah,
He's not frightened by the unknown. And so it's really like being in a playground with him because he'll try anything with incredible amount of commitment. He's also I've learned a quite extraordinary actor. Like his abilities are limitless, and so you're trying to think of opportunities to take advantage of that. Like I'm wondering what is our next project.
and I've long been a fan of Rebecca Hall, so I was really, I'm always happy to see her get her due because she's so versatile. She's
She's amazing.
yeah,
She's really amazing, and she's both technical and free.
yeah, exactly. I when I was watching this, I realized I didn't know a whole lot about Peter, so I tried to do a little bit of research. But can you sort of talk about Peter's influence as an artist and activist, especially in terms of gay liberation?
Well, he was certainly part of a movement, but I think, and he took a very seminal picture of rioters outside of Stonewall, that has become kind of one of the most known images of the Stonewall Revolution. Um, but I would say even more, he was an integral part of a queer artistic community in the East Village that was really, you know, seminal and unique in the history of American art making. Like there was such a like complex, interwoven, activist, but also extremely personal work. And I think the fact that, artists like Peter and um, uh, Charles Ludlam and Jack Smith and Ron Vaughter and you know all these wonderful people were making work really for each other in a certain way. There was a lack of interest in the world outside, which I think created a kind of freedom and bravery because they were wanted to impress each other and they wanted to pay attention to each other. And so they really inspired a kind of creativity that we haven't seen in the city since then.
Yeah. Would you say that Peter received his full due as an artist while he was
Oh,
around?
definitely not. I mean,
Okay.
he also died 13 years after this conversation,
Yeah.
um, in his early 50s, uh, way, way, way before he should have.
Yeah.
I think AIDS just wiped out this whole world that I feel that I'm still um, uh, receiving so much inspiration from.
Yeah. Yeah. When I think about your work, I mean, I think um, your work always feels so character driven.
Mm.
So kudos for that. We also, it's also been important for you to do queer, deal with queer themes for something. Can you talk about the importance of dealing with queer themes in your work?
Well, I think I try to make work that's really personal
Yeah,
and I want to and to do that means I actually in a way I have the advantage of that there's an audience there for me, but I also have the disadvantage is that there's not an economic engine that will continue to support queer filmmaking. I mean, many of my brothers and sisters who started out making queer cinema have not been able to sustain those careers because of the lack of an economic structure. That's why, I started Queer Art, which is a nonprofit that I began 15 years ago in New York to support artists working in queer stories and storytelling, because we have to support each other if we're going to make this work happen. Uh, I think For me, the work that I like best is work that seems most specific and personal and intimate and authentic. And that's why I was really drawn to Peter Hujar's Day as a
Yeah,
text. It has all those things. It's so authentic. There's not, there's, because it's the verbatim conversation that took place 50, 1 years ago, it has, it really brings to life an entire world that just to a great extent has disappeared.
exactly. So what are you working on next?
I just shot a film called The Man I Love, which is a musical
Okay.
drama set in the East Village in the late 1980s. So
Okay.
it's another film about life and death and making beauty.
Oh, great. I look forward to that.
Thanks.
Mm. It's always a pleasure talking to you. Congratulations on
Thanks, Jim. Thanks for keeping up the work you're doing. I
absolutely
appreciate
you
it.
too. Thanks so much. Take a picture. Thanks, Sarah.